Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Virtual Coffee Chat with Lewis. Today, we're going to be talking about GitLab's Remote Work Report from 2021. And guesting in this video will probably be my cats, because that's how they feel like. And you know, when cats feel like being on camera, there's very little that one can do. So let's start by, well, small disclaimer, right? I was on holidays. I didn't manage to go through the whole remote work report. I just saw GitLab's highlights, and for now that's okay, because I know Darren. He's been on the podcast from GitLab, and I've studied the company. I think they're pretty trustworthy and transparent on how they analyze and how they put the information out there. That said, of course, I'm going to read the report, and I'm going deeper into it in the next couple of shows. But for now, let's look at the highlights as presented by GitLab. So what are the key takeaways? Oh, and of course, this is the coffee chat. So let's have that sip. Excited about this report. I almost forgot my coffee, right? It's congratulations, GitLab. You made me forget my coffee for some moment. So that's cool. And by the way, let's count down to Kat as well, because the cat is threatening to get in the picture. We'll see if she shows up or not. I'll introduce you if she does. So anyway, the key takeaways are: number one, talent flows where flexibility reigns, which is a fancy way of saying that people consider the respondents from the survey. It's almost 4,000 respondents. Half of them consider leaving their co-located company for a remote role. And more interestingly, 1 in 3 respondents said they would quit their job if remote work was suddenly no longer an option. Now, I'm going to temper the stats a bit with the fact that there's clearly some bias here. The survey was conducted among people who know that in the future they will either be able to keep their remote work position or have the option to do so. Now, when you already know that you're going to get something, it's easier to say, oh, I would quit if I didn't get it, right? When they say this, it's not like they think that they would actually do it, because they don't have to, right? So there's no skin in the game here, so to say. So obviously people will have a higher level of bravado and say, I would never work here if they didn't allow me to do this, which they already do, right? So I would say that I understand why they had with it, because it's a big impactful statement at the beginning, but I don't really think that the actual true percentage would be so large. That said, obviously, working remotely is a game changer for many people, and so it carries a high value. So I would definitely say, myself, I wouldn't work this job, right? I wouldn't work as marketing director in a non-remote company. Obviously, by my own logic, easy enough to say that, right? Easy enough to say that because I'm already remote. Any case, let's move on to highlight number 2. Transparency creates belonging. That's why I like glass transparent cups, because they create belonging. No, really. So a decent chunk, about 1/3 of the respondents noted that for more transparency from leadership leads to feeling more connectedness at work. And a slightly larger amount said that visibility into work within an organization improved their sense of connection. And that's fine. That's not particularly related to remote. I think it's nice to know the why, right? This is something that I usually tell people when they ask for management advice. Explain the why, right? Even if people don't have the power to make a decision about the work that they're going to do, it's very motivating to know the why, to know that they're not just being treated as an automata, but they actually know why they're doing what they're doing. So, no surprise here. Number three, there's a contrast of perception and reality. Because even though 4 in 5 people would recommend remote working to a friend, and over 80% of them are satisfied with their level of productivity, they report over a third, only over a third report that their organization does a good job of aligning work across projects. So again, nothing particularly new here. We've talked about this in a previous coffee chat, right? People enjoy the ability to work remotely because they can feel all the advantages, but at the same time, there's something that people can't quite put the finger on. It feels somewhat chaotic, right? There's an uncertainty to the way the work is the way the work is conducted, the way the work is distributed, etc. And that's growing pains, really. uh, Working remotely, despite new remote work experts popping up like mushrooms over the last year, make no mistake, we're still figuring this out. Even the experts, especially the experts, right? We are still figuring this out. It's a big shift in paradigm. So, of course, sometimes it's going to feel uncomfortable. A lot of times people are going to, have doubts, feel imposter syndrome, and, have doubts if what they're doing is actually working out, is actually right. Takeaway number 4. Uh, Remote eyes the mainstream, right? So 45% of the respondents said that have less than a year of remote experience. They have less than a year of remote experience, so they are newly remoted people. And again, let's go back to the selection pool. Not only are they newly remote, 100% of the respondents will continue know for a fact that they will continue working remotely for the foreseeable future, or will have the option to. So that means that obviously these 45% people will stick doing remote. So clearly this is on a very decent sample size of almost 4,000 people, right? Almost half of them are new and are going to stay remote. So if we can actually, if we can, consider that this is representative of reality, that's a decent chunk. The numbers that I've been seeing lately across other studies, these are more in the area of 20, 25-ish%, right? Obviously, there's always some bias, especially, GitLab is a very remote focused organization. Their partners for the survey are as well. So, I'd say that the truth is probably somewhere in between, right? The number that they got here and the other numbers that I've been seeing. But make no mistake, the future of work is remote, even if it's only 20%, right? The lower estimates, that's a fifth. That's a fifth of the Western workforce. So, wow. So anyway, there's no putting the genie back in the bottle. That's takeaway 5, right? Again, well, very good copywriting here. Over 80% agree that remote work is the future of work, with nearly as many saying they would recommend it to a friend. Now, okay, fair enough. It's worth pointing out, as GitLab does in the study, that if these people like remote work this much now, where the world is in a state of chaos, and they are actually stuck at home and not actually able to properly use the flexibility and time to focus that remote works allow for, I imagine once everything is good. Hey, Peach. So here you have Peach. For some reason, whenever I'm recording, she decides that it's a good time to do her little cat thing, jumping on my shoulder. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this little break brought to you by Calico Cats. I should start that coffee brand. Calico Cat Coffee. Anyway, trademark it, please, someone. Takeaway number 6, employers win too. Okay, so basically, people report increased productivity for almost 40%, increased efficiency, reduction in bureaucracy and politics. This is interesting. I should do a coffee chat about this, right? Almost a fourth of the people cited a reduction in bureaucracy and politics. Would you like me to talk about this? Let me know in the comments, okay? Improve documentation and processes, 20%. Actually, this frightens me that only 20% said that there was improved documentation and process, because it's essential for remote work to work, right? You need to document everything. You need to make your processes, you need to have a place where your processes are clearly outlined and visible to everyone that would need to use them. So that's a non-negotiable in remote work. So actually, I think that this number is quite low. Seventh, the office is a hard habit to break, right? Almost half of people worry about not seeing their colleagues in person, and over a third are concerned about their ability to collaborate effectively. I think there's a bit of wishful thinking in this headline. The office is a hard habit to break. I know that GitLab firmly believes that in-personness, let's create a new word, in-personness is not really required, for people to bond and to be able to collaborate effectively. I actually think that in-personness is important. It doesn't have to be all the time, but it's nice to have meetups. And GitLab actually agrees with me, because they do, have meetups. So anyway, a catalyst for diversity. Worldwide, women make only 38% of the workforce, and in remote work, they are the majority at almost 60%. I can definitely say that's the case with Think Remote, thinkremote.com. It's actually 80% female. And yeah, well, I guess it comes with reducing the bias, right? Reducing the bias in hiring, because there's less bias. This has been studying somewhat. I should look up those studies so I could actually link that. But there are a couple of studies that when you are doing the interviews by video call, there's actually less bias than when you're doing it, in person. And also let's say things as they are. The remote work environments are much less prone to problems, right, of problems of discrimination. Culturally, they're just nicer, because people working remote work, there's a big chance that they worry about stuff like work-life balance, avoiding burnout, etc. And that's just more appealing, right? That's just more appealing. It just makes for a nicer place to work, and a nicer place to work comes with less biases and less discrimination. Anyway, next stop, burnout. Yes, 40%, over 40% admit that they struggle with maintaining boundaries. Here, I'm in this 40%, but I'm trying to improve, right? And the documentation divide. I talked about this a bit earlier. Fewer than 50% feel their organization is doing enough to share company-wide goals, documents, processes, etc. Yep, I agree. This is a problem. People need to solve it. It's hard work. It's not necessarily super engaging work, because it's much more fun to do stuff than to document stuff. But we need to do it. That's the price we pay for actually, doing great at remote work and being able to work remotely effectively. It's just a cost, right? Everything has costs. Coffee breaks go virtual. I've lost count of the takeaways, but yeah, more people do virtual coffee breaks. Of course, people like to have some face time to discuss, to entertain and be entertained. So that's the end. Oh, that's the final one. Tell me, hey, ping me in the comments. Let me know if you'd like me to talk about one of those or more of these at length, right? At greater length. I'll probably go over the report and make some more coffee chats about it. This was a big one and a wordy one. I need some coffee. But I think it's very interesting. I'm very skeptical about these surveys, because they tend to be very biased. And I mean, I don't think that GitLab makes a secret that they are biased. They are really defenders of remote work. They are very into evangelizing the remote work and remote work culture. But at the same time, they're a very respectful organization. I really think that they did a good they made a good effort at trying to vet these conclusions. So let's see. If you want me to talk about any of these things more in detail, please Give like, subscribe, and leave your request in the comments. And of course, don't forget to visit thinkremote.com. Thinkremote.com will have everything you need to learn about the world of remote, from news to guides. This was Virtual Coffee Chat with Louis for Think Remote. See you tomorrow.